Welcome to my kitchen. We're going to process some meat today, some beef. My husband called me and said we have a cow that broke its leg and we're ready for a farm kill, is what they call that. So they're going to butcher, and I said, okay, let's do this. So what we have here is the chunked up meat that we have for stew meat, and this is the best kind of thing for canning. We send it off to a processing plant, and they will cut it up in the chops or in the ground beef or whatever and freeze it in packs. This particular meat we call just for canning. It comes fresh, and then we have to process it right away. So I'll show you the steps to do it, and here are the supplies that you'll need. Of course, you're canning meat. I already started packing my jars, but when you do your jars, you want to make sure they're sterilized. You can either boil some water and just pour it in there to sterilize them, or if you have like a setting on your dishwasher that's for sterilizing, or just a sterile rinse or whatever, just to kill anything that might be in there. My jars aren't stored in a very clean place, so it's always good to have something that cleans them up. Then you want to check the rims. That's really important, to check your rims to make sure there's no cracks or little chips. Anything that's somewhat questionable, just don't use, because this is under a lot of pressure when it's canning. Also, you want to use a good quality jar for canning meat. It gets put through a lot, so we want to make sure that they can handle what you do. Also, we have, of course, our rings and our lids. And the lids, first thing I'm going to do is just pop these in the water. I got a pan of water here, and this is to sterilize those as well. So while I'm packing the rest of the jars, these will be boiling in here just to sterilize. And I do every other, because they could stick together sometimes, so you just move them around. And we let those boil in there for just a few minutes. They don't need a whole lot of time. And over here, I've got some bouillon. And you don't have to use bouillon. My mother-in-law never puts anything in there but water, and she actually leaves a chunk of fat on the top. And so that makes for a really tasty, like a broth in there when she cooks it. But I just use a little spoonful of this. In fact, I'm just going to go ahead and do this on the jars I have done just to demonstrate. I take about a spoonful, really not much, just a spoonful in each jar, and I just put it right on top because I'm going to put some hot water over that. And when I packed these, I actually measured, and it was about 2 pounds, maybe not quite 2 pounds per each jar, and that's about right for my family. We have 5 kids, so we've got a lot of big eaters. You can process in a pint jar too. The length of time to process is like 15 minutes less for pint jars than it is for quart jars. So the other thing we need is, of course, your canner. You have to have a pressure canner because of the low acidity. Any kind of vegetables or meat that has a low acid, you have to cook under pressure, or can under pressure. This one is a Miro, and it uses a weighted gauge. And this particular case, we need 10 pounds of pressure on it. So I stick it right on there like that. And I'll show you how that works once we get started. I also use my blue book. This is a favorite of mine. It has a lot of different recipes and also all the procedures for whatever you need to do for any kind of canning. So I just follow the guide in here for cooking meat, or for canning meat. You can use any recipe. Just make sure that it's a very tried and true recipe. Some stuff you get online you don't know. It's hard to tell, but in this case I know this book works, so I'm going to keep using it. And that's pretty much it. I'll show you. I'm one-handed here trying to video and do this, so bear with me. But what I'm going to do is just take the chunks of meat, and I pop it in my jar, and after a little bit here I'll use my wooden spoon there, and I'll just pack it down in. You can take care of any air bubbles that way. It's not super important, but it packs in tighter. I can get a little more meat in there too. You can see I'm just kind of popping it down. Packs in just a little bit. And my particular canner holds 7 jars, quart jars. And I don't know if I will have enough meat here to do that many. It might be pretty close to 6. And I might even get a pint. We'll see how it goes. If I leave you hanging on the video, I'm sorry. I'm kind of not watching very good. Squish it in there real good. I think here, see what I've got left. I think I'm just going to take what's left and pack it in the jars. You would like to leave, you need to leave about 1 inch of headspace, and that looks somewhat like this. You look at the side of the jar, and just underneath that rim, give it a good guess of 1 inch headspace. You don't want to pack it so tight that the lid can't come on and that you don't have room to pour any liquid into it. You want to just give it enough. But since I've got a little extra room in these jars, I'm going to put the rest of this meat in here. The recipe that we are using is just a basic canning meat recipe. There's no flavors or anything. You can do that. You can add all kinds of stuff and make it for soup, or put vegetables in it, anything like that. So it works really well to do just about anything. A lot of flexibility there. I think I can probably put in maybe another chunk there. Alright, so that's what I'm going to do. I've got 6 quarts here, and at this point what I'm going to do is, well, first I'll put some bouillon in that last jar. As you can see, I've got other things going on. This is a bunch of ground beef I'm cooking, and even over here I've got my tallow that I'm rendering all the fat from the cow that was just killed. I'm rendering the fat to turn it into soap. So I've got a major meat processing thing going on here. Okay, so once I've got the jars packed, I'm going to wipe the rims with a clean cloth. And that's just to get anything sticky off, and then to do a second check on your edges to make sure there's no chips. So get those wiped up real good. And I'm going to rinse my hands in my sink. Alright, now what I'm going to do is take this. This is one of the best things ever invented. It's just a magnet on a stick. It seems so fancy, but you can pop it in there and get yourself one lid without burning yourself. It's beautiful. So I just set it right on there. Try to get it without the magnet coming with it. You can see how easy that is. Maybe. Or not. Alright, you can see this. This is how we put them on. You don't want to... Oh, now wait a minute. I missed a major step. Pouring my water in. Sorry! Okay, here's my water. You can use a tea kettle or whatever you want. But you want to just fill it, not very much, just up to that edge. Can't hardly believe I almost forgot that. And you can see the bubbles coming up. That means that there's just a little bit pockets of air. You can pour it in and then see how much air is left. I'm going to do this to all of them. I can't believe I almost forgot that. Actually, I think you can probably can it without putting water in it, but I like to have gravy with it. What will happen is when we're done, you'll see the meat will rise and there will be a whole bunch of juice in the bottom. And that's because there's so much juice in the meat already. And so you'll end up seeing all that juice that the meat alone had. So you wouldn't have to put water in it, but I really like to have a good amount of broth to make my gravy or my soup or whatever. So, okay, now we'll put the rings on. And the sterile lids. Alright. Okay, there we go. When you screw your lids on, you don't want to do it so tight that you'll never get it off, but you want to make sure it's on good. And I usually take 2 hands, so I'm going to try. Let's see what happens if I set this down. Sorry about your view. This is kind of hilarious. I'm going to tighten those on Give it a nice little twist, but not so tight that it ends up never coming off. I'm sure this video is funny to watch because your view, I don't even know what you're seeing. Oh, that's great. Okay, so, if I can find this again. There, we got all our lids and rings on nicely. This is what our meat looks like. There's some juice in there. You can see the juice. Yeah, it's looking like it's ready to go. So now what I'm going to do is take my canner. And the canner actually will have a gas trivet underneath. Sorry, see if I can get that off. There we go. This is a trivet that's removable, and that protects the bottom of the jars, keeps them from being exactly on the heat. So that you'll want in the bottom. I'm going to stick this up on my stove. And I pour in a quart of water. For canning meat, you'll want a quart of water in the bottom, and that gives it enough to work on the pressure. I'm going to pause the video and check my book for just a minute and come right back. Okay, I just checked my book. I wanted to make sure it didn't look like there was that much water with 1 quart, and it's true. I need to have 2 inches of water is what it called for. So I'm going to pour in more, 2 inches in the bottom of your canner, and that's pretty close. I think I'll even pour a little bit more in. Get my thing here. There we go. That looks better. And now what I'll do is place my jars right in there. The heat can be on already. I've already got my, put this on the double. Get my heat on. You can get your water started to cook. It takes a good while to get your whole thing all heated up. So what you want to do is get that water going, get your jars going, and you just gently set them in. The only bummer about doing 6 quarts of meat is that they're even worth more gold, and so then I just want to look at them and not use them, and it's terrible. So I'll need to do like 20 more quarts if I want to enjoy this. So there's what it looks like in there. There's room enough for another canner or another jar. I don't have them obviously, but that you can do. Also, I don't know, I've not done pints for a long time, but I think there's something like 12 pints you can do at once, but I can't remember in this one. Some of the canners are real tall and you can like double stack them, but this is what I've got to work with. So I'm going to put my lid on. Notice in the lid, I'm going to set this on here quick. A couple things on the lid. You've got a gasket and it has to fit under these little ledges. Make sure your gasket's a good quality. It's not like starting to tear or anything. You want it to seal just right. And then you always make sure that little hole right there in the middle is clear. It's that little thing that the gauge sits on. If that is full of gunk, like if you ever cook with this, and like sometimes I cook my apples for applesauce, you can get stuff stuck in there, and that's bad. I mean, that's really bad. You want the steam to be able to come out of that hole. So you want to make sure that's good and clear. You can run water through it to make sure it's clean. So I'm going to stick this on here real good. I'm going to set it down again, so bear with me again. Let's see if I can get you a decent view here.